Okay, guys. So I hope you're safe, happy, and healthy, staying at home during this time. But we're gonna try out a different format for school for a little while and just kind of see how we like it. So it starts with us giving you some live instruction on Mondays, which would be like this with me and Mr. Turner. Tuesday, you'll do just a few problems related to the video you watch on Monday. Wednesday, you'll take a quiz, really short, like 4 or 5 questions over what you're learning on Monday and Tuesday. And then that quiz will give you live feedback. So if you get anything wrong, it'll let you know. It'll tell you your grade. And on Thursday, you can ask us questions about that quiz. And then on Friday, you can retake that quiz if you need to.
So again, welcome guys. We will try to do a couple of these live videos. If you're watching this particular one, we recorded it because the live didn't work on YouTube just yet. I needed to wait 24 hours for my account. But anyway, we will have live sessions where you're able to live chat with us as we go through the instruction. If you have any questions, you can check that out. And again, later in the week too, on Thursday, we'll do a live session on Hangouts so we can all talk to each other and see how things are going. If you have any questions with what's going on. So, remember, we have talked about slope. You guys should know slope backwards and forwards right now. And the big thing about slope is it's the change in y over the change in x. Okay, and that's really what we're just finding here to find out if it's going to be linear, if it's a line on a graph. I will say this all again here in 2 seconds. So, let's take a look at the first problem that you guys have to work on and see what we got. Okay. So if you remember back to our slope, we talked about the change in x over the change in y. Okay, we said that several different ways, and that gives us our slope, right? That's also our slope. But real importantly, our change in x and change over y. And if our slope is equal all the way through, that means it's linear. It will form a line. It won't be a crooked graph. You know, the line on the graph won't be crooked. And we'll be able to see what's there. So we need to determine how that works, and we can do that from the graph by figuring out what our slope is, the change in y over change in x, and if it's consistent. So let's use the help of Tiny Turner. Tiny Turner is going to show us in question number 1, 2 minus 1 equals 1 for the x. 3 minus 2 equals 1 for the x. And 4 minus 3 equals 1 for the x. So the x are all equal. Each change in x is 1, 1, and 1. That's good. That's a good start. So now, we take a look at the y. 4 minus 1 is 3. And then 9 minus 4 is 5. And then 16 minus 9 is 7. So, they are not equal. So if we were to look at the slope of these, you would take y divided by x, which in this case, so the first one is 3 over 1. The next one would be 5 over 1. And the last one would be 7 over 1. That's y divided by x. And you can see if we divided those, they would not be the same number. So this is definitely not a linear line on your graph. Okay, so let's try a few more and see how we do. Okay, anything you want to add, Miss Blanton?
I just want to point out that there are lots of different ways to determine if a function is linear or not. One of those ways is in a graph, and Mr. Turner showed you that at the beginning of the video where he had one that was a straight line and one that wasn't. It doesn't matter what way the straight line faces, but a straight line is always linear, linear. And then a curved line of any kind is not linear. So you will need to be able to know that, but we think it's pretty easy for you to identify, so we didn't really emphasize it.
Okay, so let's go on to problem number 2. Problem number 2. Let's take a look at this one. Just remember, it's the change in y over the change in x. That's how we find our slope. And that's what we're trying to find through our table here, is what is the change in y over change in x. Now remember, we're subtracting, like on the x, the 3 minus 0. It's always subtracting. So if you have a negative, don't forget, it's 3 minus minus. Okay, so you have to add them both in there, and we know 2. When you subtract a negative, it becomes a positive. So don't forget that when we're doing these examples, okay? So let's start taking a look at this example with Tiny Turner again. Here he is, 3 minus 0. We're calculating the x. 3 minus 0 is 3. 6 minus 3 is 3. And 9 minus 6 is 3. So once again, when we look at these, they are all equal. That's a good sign. We're at a good start for this being linear. Now let's look at the y. We have 9 minus negative 3. So two negatives make a positive, which makes it 12. Now we have 21 minus 9. That equals 12. And then we have 33 minus 21. And that also equals 12. So they are all equal on this one as well. So that's shaping up to be linear. So let's go ahead and put it in our table again. 12 divided by 3, y divided by x, is the same as the next one. They're all 12 divided by 3. And we could reduce that and it would be 4. But we can see in this that this is definitely a linear table. It all adds up together. Okay, so this is linear. Let's move on to number 3. Okay. Just Blanton, anything?
Nope.
Okay. Again, guys, be careful of your subtraction. It's not just, the second number minus the first one. You have to do minus minus, which becomes a positive, right? It's the whole equation is a subtraction, so you have to make sure and put that in together. All right, so let's do question number 3. And again, make sure to always reduce your fractions. Just because they're different numbers, it could still be the same, and I will talk about that now. Here we have a problem with a lot of negatives in it. Something's important to remember. Make sure that you reduce the fractions to see if they're equal. Just because the numbers are different doesn't mean it's not linear. You have to divide them and find out if they are equivalent fractions. So like 20 over 2 equals 10. 40 over 4 equals 10. Even though they're different numbers, they are equivalent. They are the same. So please make sure when you divide at the end that they equal each other, and then you'll know whether it's linear. Just because they're different numbers doesn't mean they're not linear. Make sure and do the division. So let's turn to Tiny Turner again and see what he's got. So we start again with the x. 3 minus 1 is 2. And then we go on to the next one. 5 minus 3 is 2. And 7 minus 5 is also 2. So on the top half, the x's, they all are the same. So that's a good start. They are all equal. We're looking pretty good so far. Now again, we still got a ways to go though. Let's start with the y. The y, I have negative 18 minus 2. So remember we have to add, that's negative 16. Now I have negative 50 minus 18. That is negative 32. And then negative 98 minus 50, which is negative 48. They are not equal. But we still can't decide yet. We have to divide. So we take the first one, negative 16 divided by 2. And then we have negative 32 divided by 2. And then negative 48 divided by 2. Okay, so this is where we have to see, are these equivalent fractions? So let's take a look and see real quick. So if I take negative 16 divided by 2, I get 8. Negative 32 divided by 2, I get 16. Negative 48 divided by 2, 24. So these are not linear. They did not reduce to where we were equivalent fractions. Okay, thank you. By the way, I did just notice I put 36 instead of 32 on one of those. So if you got confused by that when I talked about how to subtract the two, the negative 50 minus 18, that should have been 32. It said 36. But anyway, it's correct there toward the end. Anything else, Miss Blanton?
No.
Okay, guys. So, what we're going to do, guys, just a quick reminder. Monday, we will do the live videos, where, again, we'll be on YouTube, and you can, we'll do the instruction live. If you have any questions, you can chat with us there live. On Tuesday, you'll have your worksheet. Again, we've done a couple of them on your worksheet. Again, we just gave them to you, so you should get those right. You only have a couple of more to finish. Wednesday, there will be a quiz. Thursday, we will have a live session where we'll be on Hangouts where we can actually speak to each other and see how you guys are doing, have any questions. And then if you didn't do too well on Wednesday, you get to retake on Friday. If not, then you have a lovely Friday. So until then, guys, stay safe out there and hope to see you guys soon.